Well, I am so excited today for this conversation. Eric Bishop, author of The Body Man, phenomenal political thriller. All of you should get this. He was kind enough to join me today, and some of the conversations we had was about this idea of never quitting, that we could be our reasons why we never accomplish what we set out to do, where we never finish that first draft in order to move to the next level. Fascinating conversation because all of us at some time probably have a lot of folders on our computers with unfinished ideas or unfinished projects. So I talked to Eric about how he set out and what changed going from unfinished to published author and what he does in his day-to-day to help structure his day to put himself in a position to be successful. Phenomenal conversation. We go down a few other little rabbit holes about writing, but it was a great conversation. I'm so happy that he joined me today. So let's dive into today's episode of You're in Charge, Now What, with author Eric Bishop. All right, so we are back for another episode, and I'm just so honored to be sitting here chatting with Eric Bishop. He is the author of The Body Man. And so first off, thank you for being here and taking some time with me today.
Thank you, Glenn. I appreciate it.
So, I ran across your book. Over the last few years, I've really dove into the political thriller genre. And your book came up and was recommended, and I dove into it, and I thought it was just so different and fresh and fascinating, especially the concept of the body man, which we'll get into. But more importantly, when I was doing some research on you and you sharing your story, this seems like a big change. This wasn't, maybe you always wanted to be an author, but this is your debut novel, but you were in business, corporate America for such a long time. Talk to me about that change. Like why all of a sudden that pivot to writing fiction?
Yeah, no, great question. So it wasn't a sudden change. I will say that. I still am in business. So I still have a 9-to-5 job. The writing is definitely my side gig, my passion. And what I try to put in the acknowledgements and why I mentioned that was for years, I wanted to be where I'm sitting now. And I wanted to be writing, and I wasn't, and that was part of the problem. Kind of take it back a little further, probably college. College is when I started dabbling in writing, and I started in poetry of all things, not writing novels. It wasn't until actually the year after I graduated, my first corporate job, is when I started writing, actually novels. And first one was actually a novel with a friend. I'd read a chapter, he'd read a chapter, and he was living, I don't know, maybe Indianapolis, somewhere in the Midwest. I was on the East Coast, and we just took turns writing chapters and kind of got that bug started in me of writing. Like many things, though, and why I mention stuff in the acknowledgements and try to use the platform I have now to encourage other people is I let life interfere or take me a different path, I guess I should say, versus interfering. Got married, had kids. I wrote quite a lot over the course of probably the first 5 to 7 years after college, but I didn't finish anything, Glenn. And that was kind of the thing. That was the cancer that ate at me for years. Is I wrote, but I never completed anything. So, and I've mentioned this in other interviews, I have still to this day on the computer that we're talking on, I have 2 folders. One's called books, and it's probably got about 12 to 15 folders in it. The Body Man's one of the folders, and it's got all the versions of The Body Man. Breach of Trust, the book I've just finished up now and am working on editing, the follow-up, has a folder for that, has a folder for the book after that, and then other books I finished that I wasn't able to get published. Right. I've also got a folder there called Old Books. And the folder called Old Books are all those things I started from after college till that probably 7-year period or whatever. And what I realized was years later after school is that I never finished any of those things. So some of them are a page or two of an idea for a story. Some of them are 80 or 90 or 100 pages. So it's not a small amount of writing in there. But the common theme on all of them is I never completed anything.
So then to that point, then what was the trigger that finally said, I have to? I mean, I'm sure a lot of people in the audience listening,
right.
I can raise my hand to say I have folders of things that either I couldn't find the end of it or I couldn't find the commitment to follow it through. I'm sure we all do. So then what was that switch, or was there some sort of an event that finally made you go, I have to?
Yeah, great question. I think so. I was about, let's see, when I started the first novel I completed is called Vengeance. It was a drone story. It was my Troy Evans series that I wrote 3 books out of 7 and was trying to sell. So that was 2014. So I think in 2014, so that would have put me at about mid 30s, I guess. Yes. How was that, 36 or whatever when that happened? I think I had a midlife crisis is what I probably had. Is I kind of said I was in a job that I really wasn't thrilled about. I wasn't thrilled about the trajectory of my professional life. And I kind of just had one of those come to Jesus moments and said, well, what do you want to do with your life? Foolishly, my brain said, well, you want to finish one of those novels you started, Eric. And I say foolish because if you want to make a living in life, writing is probably the worst idea you could come up with. I can attest to that since I'm now a published writer, paid writer, but I'm not a self-sufficient published or paid writer for sure. But really, I joke about it, but I really think at that point and that time in my life, I realized I wanted to do something more. I wanted to leave something behind. With my day-to-day job, it's a finance job. I'm good at what I do. I work hard, but there's nothing to show my kids. There's nothing to hand off to someone one day and say, this is my body of work. My body of work doesn't exist. It's numbers and budgets and bonuses and stuff like that. So I think in 14, my brain went back to all those things I started that I never finished. And I don't remember exact moment. I just remember the feeling I still have now that's really stayed with me during that time is I wanted to prove to myself that, hey, if I start something, I can finish something. If I don't finish it, the only person that's on is me. It's on nobody else. And that's what I try to tell people now. I try to use this platform I have, as small as it might be, to just try to encourage people to say, you know what, you do have the ability to write a book. If that's your passion, whatever it might be, write a song, get a different job, whatever it is. You do have the ability to do that. 99.9% of the people have that mental or cognitive ability to finish something.
Right.
The reason they don't is themselves. You can't blame, and I did for years. I blamed, marriage. I blamed job. I blamed time. And I just got to the point of like, I'm sick of making excuses. What do I want to do?
Right.
Goal 1 was to finish a book. And in 2014, I did. And I felt like I was the big deal. And I thought, well, here it comes. The ball's going to start rolling down the mountain. And what I realized was I was on the bottom of a mountain and I had my first bump. I had to push a boulder over, and it was really heavy. And I wasn't going uphill. I wasn't going downhill. I was going uphill. And it took 7 years before The Body Man came out, which was my 4th completed novel. And I don't pat myself on the shoulder and say it's all my hard work and perseverance. There's a lot of things that factored into me getting the 3-book deal. But the biggest factor is I never quit. I kept pushing. I had a goal. And there's tons of books out there. I've got great books here. The Successful Novelist by David Morrell and On Writing by Stephen King. There's great books for writing, and there's some truths in there that will totally help a writer.
Yes.
But first thing, and the only rule that matters with writing or whatever creative adventure is, don't quit. That's it. Yeah. Let's sum up everything right in those 2 words. Don't quit.
No. And what I love about that, and just the more I understood your story, and very interesting, the timing of this, because I had paused the podcast for, about 4 or 5, 6 weeks, because I just felt like I was in a rut myself of just doing for doing's sake. And so funny, when I came back, the episode 2 episodes ago was all about this, you getting in your own way. And then sometimes if you're leading your team, sometimes you can get in their way of doing things. But it really connected to me in your acknowledgement at the end of the book. And I'm going to just read something so I don't do it. It says, above all, I want my literary journey to reinforce my belief that anyone can accomplish any task they put their minds to. No matter what you want to try in life, the only thing standing in the way of success is you. And I love this one. Don't be a hindrance to your own dreams. And that just so connected. And I agree. I think we all have folders. We all have things that we've started and haven't completed. And we have a tendency to blame everything else, everything outside first. But eventually you run out of finger pointing and eventually you have to look at it in yourself. So from a technical standpoint, right, as a writer, to continue to say, okay, here, I'm going to finish everything. How did you help yourself? There's going to be some people that say, yeah, that sounds great, or I want to finish.
Right.
They find themselves either structurally not as organized or some sort of almost looking at this as a job where you're saying, I have to dedicate time to it. Talk to me about how you've structured your time to be able to allow yourself that funnel of creativity to get down to the finish line.
Sure. Great question. So it's changed, first of all. So for the 5 novels I've finished now, I've gone through a lot of different changes in life. So with that first, so I'll talk about the first one to start with, Vengeance, the first book. I didn't have a clue what I was doing. I will even use the word, I was ignorant to the publishing industry, ignorant to how do you write a book. What I had that you have to actually finish something is I had that zeal to get it done. So I had the motivation.
Okay.
So the first question I had to ask myself at that point in my life, I was married, 2 kids. So the first question I had to ask, and one of them was very small, is I want to write this book. I want to get this done, but I do not want to interfere with the most important thing in my life, which is my family. And problem number 2 is I had a full-time job. So I have 2 very big time commitments that I are prioritizing before I write a book. So that left me with question 3 in my head is, well, how do I find the time to do this? So for me, at least in that stage of my life, when I was going through that first book, the one thing I could give up that I had for time killer, I guess I should say, was I didn't do social media at the time, which is now probably my biggest time killer. And anyone listening or watching this is gonna be like, he's a hypocrite. He's on the internet all the time on the social media.
Yeah.
I'm on way too much. I fully admit it. It might have sold a few books for me, but it's eaten up a lot of my time. But I gave up television. So that was for a better part of a year. It didn't take me that long to write that book, but I said, okay, what can I give up to free up the ability to write? And so I cut television, and I didn't watch tons of television, but I watched enough sports, movies, regular shows. So I pretty much cut them out. And the other thing too is I did that all in the evening. So I had my 9-to-5 job, had my family, and everyone would be in bed by around 9:30. So about 10 o'clock was Dad's time. And normally I would read or write during that time. I was not read or write, sorry. I would read or watch something on TV. I'd write over the years, here and there, but never a novel, or never what became a novel. So I just cut all that other stuff out after 10 o'clock and I just focused on just writing. So real quick on that, what was detrimental to me that I would tell people to make sure they're structured better than I was for that first book was I didn't have an off switch. So I started the book, it's been a few years now. So it was 2014. I think it was June 19th or June 23rd, 2014. I started the book and I was all in. I would write every night from 10 o'clock till until I was done with that thought process.
Right.
That might be midnight. That might be 4 a.m. And I had to get up the next morning and go to work. I did it 6 nights a week, basically. I took the Sabbath off. I took Sunday night off pretty much. And I'd watch something. I then would watch television, kind of decompress.
A little reward.
It was my reward. Yeah, I watched the Devil Vision for fill my head with some fanciful story for my reward. But I did that for 3 months. I did that until September because I finished the book actually in Yosemite. I was on a business trip, stayed a little extra for one day. I drove into Yosemite at 8 o'clock in the morning, and I had to be on the road to get to San Francisco, the airport. I had to leave at 6 p.m. So I had, the better part of a full day to write, and I had about 3 chapters I had kind of left off to finish there. And it was probably the most magical from a literary standpoint, it was the most magical day of my life. And it will always be the most magical day of my life. Even if I become a New York Times bestseller or get a big movie deal or whatever, I'll look back at that moment as I cried when I finished the last words. I was up near Merced Grove, which was a higher part of the park. I wrote most of the time down in the valley, lower valley, at the waterfalls and all kinds of places. But I think what happened at that very moment I finished it was the release of all that emotion and years really of, I want to write a book, and I did.
Right.
And that was the feeling. I've never, I say this and I don't say it as a negative, but I've never got that feeling again. I've had some great feelings writing. I had some amazing feelings this year or this past 4 months becoming a published author. But that first moment, it's kind of like having your first child or all the firsts in life. You can't ever replicate that feeling, and that's what I always try to do. It's like a drug that when I finish a book, I finished one 2 weeks ago Tuesday. I was on my back porch back here. Great feeling. There's a little sliver of it that said, you're not in Yosemite finishing that first book. And I'm like,
right.
darn you, bad feeling. This is a great thing. So, but yeah, no, I had to find something to get rid of. I got rid of television, and that then was that extra time I needed to get that done. And as life went on, it's changed. My times I write has changed a little bit. Yeah, unfortunately, I went through a divorce several years ago. I didn't write for a better part of a year because I tried, and it wasn't there.
Right.
There was a lot of anger, there was a lot of resentment, and all kinds of emotions that might make for a crappy book or a therapeutic book, but don't make for something that Glenn wants to read.
Right.
And Eric doesn't want to read. I didn't keep any of it. I deleted all of it. So I don't need this stuff. So that changed life. So, and once that part of my life was past, I found the renewed energy I needed, and I found the time I needed to write. And so you have to work with what you have, first of all, but you do have to structure it.
So do you cap it now? Like before you were saying you would just run to the end and it could be 4 o'clock. Is it more structured to say, I write for 3 hours a day or 2 hours a day or whatever framework that is? And when it's done, it's done. I mean, every time you might be riding some little wave at the end, but you're not just writing till I can't pick up the pen anymore.
Exactly. So great question. Yes. So that what I didn't finish with the first book is I wrote it fast. I mean, that's pretty fast from June to September.
Sure.
Again, I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't write. I mean, the book never got published, so I can't say I wrote, I didn't write War and Peace and, everyone flocked to it. It's still sitting on my hard drive. I got good compliments from people that read it years later and said, man, it's a solid book, but it wasn't polished. It wasn't ready to be published. And maybe one day I'll be able to remedy that. Right. But I did physically get myself ill. That's the other thing I caution people is I put everything I had of all that time and it was still only 10 o'clock till whatever. I didn't write during the day. I didn't tell my kids, hey, sorry guys, I can't play with, and dad can't play with you, or tell my wife, hey, I can't have dinner tonight. I'm going to write. So, by the end of September, when I was finished at Yosemite, I was physically ill. I was physically like drained because I put too much into it. So I learned a good lesson. So when I started the second book later that year, which is called the Zachariah Option, then I become much more structured. And then I had to train myself, and I don't know how I did it. I just know I had to do it at the time of, okay, you write from 10 o'clock till 12 o'clock. Cause I still had that schedule for a while. And I told myself, okay, once midnight hits, I wouldn't stop mid-word or mid-sentence, but I'd stop paragraph. Okay, you're done. You have to be done. And then a lot of times I'd watch an episode of Seinfeld just to get the book out of my head, get Jerry or George or Kramer in my head, or Elaine, to kind of transition. Okay, go to sleep, idiot. But yeah, I had to structure it in a way to not allow it, don't allow the beast to take over, basically.
Right.
Now it's a lot easier. Now I'm 7 years into it. Like I said, I just finished this, the 5th book. I've got 2 others in various stages. I don't know, maybe because I've achieved some of the things I wanted to start with, the push is there to finish. Absolutely. Don't take it that way. But I don't have that, man, I've got to get this thing out of my system in the next week or month or whatever. Right. Now, the publisher can wait. I'll deliver a book when it's ready. I'll meet my deadlines, but I'll modify things where I have to.
Right. But I think that I'm wondering also, it sounds like because you finished, you have the confidence that you know you can finish versus I don't think I'm ever going to finish. And now all of a sudden you have, yes, you're guided by your publisher or by some outside deadlines, but you're responsible for the quality and you're understanding what it takes to have a good
Absolutely.
piece of literature written that you're happy with.
Right.
And being able to get commented. So on that, again, in your acknowledgments, you thank a lot of authors that I've read who I've become very big fans of. So I'm always curious, how does one research all of this from a technical standpoint, right? So the body man's talking about inner workings of, let's say, the White House and all the way some of these teams are going, and some of the, talking about the guns and the knives. And I know I'm a fan of Jack Carr, and I've read about how, he was, and I see behind you, I'm assuming you were, I would think you're military, maybe. Do you have military? No,
No, I don't.
Things in the background.
I'll tell you the story behind it, but finish your question. So how do you get to that point?
Yeah, no, how do you do like technical research on that? Or how do you get it so it's right? So someone who understands it looks at it and goes, yeah, he has all the facts right, versus, oh, he doesn't know what he's talking about.
I make it up really good, Glenn. So I research as much as I can. I am fortunate with the network I've created over the years since 2000. I think I started social media in 2016 is when I opened my accounts. And that was merely because I was querying my first book and agents were like, what's your social media presence? And I'm like, social media is stupid. Why would I do social media? They're like, come back and talk to us when you have 10,000 Twitter followers and a website. Exactly. And I was just, that was the part of it. That's probably another conversation. And one of our other questions, we could focus on the business side of this, which is the dark secret, I guess. But yeah, just, there is an element of making stuff up. I will fully admit. I won't say what I make up versus what I don't. Probably more than people think, maybe. I research as much as I can. So I'll look at books, not Wikipedia, but go to websites.
Right.
It's amazing what you can find out on the CIA's website, on the FBI's website, on the White House website. You can get a lot of details. Some of the Secret Service stuff, I've been fortunate to meet a few agents. And I met one recently, and he read the book after the fact, and he was very complimentary. And I said, "Well, I got some stuff right." He's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Well, good, because I made a lot of stuff up. I'm glad it wasn't totally like people going, 'Oh God, who is this guy and what's he doing?'" Because I tried out one thing, and I learned this from an author. I don't want to name drop, so I won't say who it is. New York Times bestseller, and we were talking one time over drinks. And this person's former military, has the 20 plus years experience of knowing what he's talking about. And his comment to me was, "Eric, you don't have the, not knocking you here, but you're not former military. You don't have the experience. If you get something wrong, you'll hear about it for a long time. So for you, either make sure that gun that the body man is holding, an FBI agent has, which that one's pretty easy to research, but you make sure you have the accurate weapon they use, or just say the word gun, or you say the word weapon. This person was saying, I can do it with authority because I was in charge of a team. And so I kind of try to do that with my books, is make it more the layman can understand it.
And that's what I really, and to that point, that's what I really appreciated about the book and liked about it, because I have read some of them, and they get so bogged down in the details of every gun and this shoe and that, and that's fine. But to me, like, let's get on with the story here. Let's go. And what I found with the Body Man is it places you there, you can see it, or I could see where I was, see what was going on, but the narrative kept moving, and it was just enough flavor to say, this is real, and without me going, well, what is that? I'm confused, which I don't want to get when I'm reading a book. I don't like slowing down.
Yeah. So I don't want to get it wrong, which I'm not to say there's nothing in my book that's wrong. I'm sure there's a billion things people could find out that really have done this lifestyle. B, to your point, exactly. I'm at the point now with my reading, that I'll gloss over pages sometimes when they start getting technical.
Right.
Because the secret is, I don't care. I don't care what suppressor that gun has and what the velocity is for the round or any of that stuff. Some people, that is their juice. They love
Yes.
that. They can visualize it better. For me, the bullet went out the end of the weapon and it blew someone's head up or whatever.
Right.
Cool. I
Exactly.
understand that.
Yeah.
I don't care if it moved at 1200, feet per second or blah,
Yes.
blah, blah. And I respect the authors that put that in there. It's not a knock at them. That's
No,
not my,
it's
that's not
just
my thing at
style.
all.
No, I agree.
Not my thing.
So let's talk about, because I did have this on my list here to
Yes.
understand the business of it. There's a lot of people who write books or self-publish. I've co-authored a couple, and we self-publish, and you get a few hundred people or 1,000 people buy them, whatever it is. But the idea, when you mentioned it also, is, social media, of course, publishers want to make sure you have an audience because they're going to invest in, like, what have you done for your own audience? Do you have a community in order for us to invest in you? Mm-hmm. So from going to writing books and not having that, how does one go about finding a publisher? As you said, the dirty secret of, or the business side of this, that a lot of people just think, oh, I'm going to write a great book, and if I think it's great, magical publishers are going to fall out of the sky and swoop me up.
Yeah. So first of all, anyone listening, remember, it is a business. Publishers, while they might like your book, they're only signing you or your novel because they believe they can make money, and they'll make more money off your book than you'll probably make. And that's that's kind of the dirty secret of publishing. It's not a secret, it's out there. People, I think, tend to ignore that. When I first started this, I did it to write a book. I didn't think about the business side for years.
Right.
I wish I had, because it probably would have changed those first few years what I did. So I had to play catch up and learn a lot of things. But first and foremost, you do have to remember it is a business. So you have to separate the creative side of writing a book from the side of how do you then sell that book, or how's the publisher going to sell it. You've got to build a social media platform. They're pretty much requiring it. Even big name authors are out there. They're hustling. You mentioned Jack Carr. I know Jack. I met him several years ago, and I'm fortunate to keep in contact with him. He's, by all accounts, I don't know his sales numbers, but I can look at Amazon reviews and see on the New York Times bestseller list, I got an idea that Jack's been pretty successful selling books that he's written. However, Jack's not sitting in Park City, Utah on his back porch writing books all the time. He's busting his butt out there hustling. I mean, he's just started a new promo last week, I think, where he shot holes through the title pages. Saw that. And, I sent him a note and I was like, dude, that's brilliant. He's like, yeah, Simon Schuster went for it. I was like, holy cow, but that's the side that that's where the business has changed, maybe say in 20 years or so, where maybe further back than that, you used to write books, give it to your editor and the publisher, they do their magic, and then you're just writing the next book. You might do an interview or a print interview or something. Now that world's gone. Not only do you have to write a book, you have to hawk that book. You have to be doing podcasts, have to be doing social media. And that makes it a lot harder, because then that time that we were talking about earlier, how you have a limited amount of time sometimes, especially if you have a full-time job and a family, that sliver of writing time gets smaller. So that's when it comes down to scheduling and really just figuring out how you're going to market that book, which is not that answer. I'd love to know what the answer is to how do you market a book, because I still don't know. I've gotten a lot of compliments from what I've done for social media, and I'd love to say there was this master plan of all these things. I had some good ideas and I implemented them, but it's so complicated, because something you put a lot of effort into from a marketing standpoint, you think is going to work, totally falls flat. Or paying someone.
But what I like about what you do, because I follow you, I do follow Jack Carr and and a few other ones, which has been really amazing early on. I tweet to Jack Carr, hey, and he'd respond back, back, and you're here. Like when you said, sure, I'll do this, part of me went, wow, like he's going to come over on to do this. And a lot of the other Simon Gervais and Chris Howdy and a few other ones, they'll talk back to their, call it fans or just anyone who's responding. That would have never happened you never would have been able to reach out to an author. But the fact, and your point is, what I like about all of it, but especially what I like about yours and why I feel connected in some ways, is you show a lot of your personal side, which I love your cooking, watching what
like my Blackstone.
Oh my God. I was I might have to get one of those things. That was phenomenal.
You need one.
But, looking at the teriyaki chicken you were sort of showing off the other day. But I think that connects with people because they go, oh, I know that person. I'll read that book. And that's how I stumbled across a lot of the authors that I've read, is the fact that I read their social media. It isn't all just buy my book, buy my book, buy my book. It's one book and then a bunch of where they are, they're writing or commenting or how you all in your community interact with each other.
Right.
It allows people, I think, to go, I like that person, hence I will read the book, versus New York Times told me I should read this book. It has completely changed. Yeah,
so it has completely changed. So I'll take a step back and say it this way, I guess. First of all, I'm authentic of who I am. I put myself out there, the good and the bad. I know I post too much on social media. I've had people say, you share too much of what you do. And it's not ever trying to be a bragger in any way, shape, or form. That's not who I am. But I put it on my website. I put it in my newsletter. Life's a journey, not a destination. So I try to share that with people. Well, what am I doing on my journey? Well, I'm going to cow pens and hiking a battlefield. I'm going to Charleston. I'm taking my kids to Gatlinburg and Dollywood. Trying to get people to get out. People, especially nowadays, we are becoming, because of social media, because of the world, because of COVID the last couple of years, people are becoming a lot more inclusive. Stay in their house. And I've got a great house. I got a great back deck I post pictures of cooking on. I love people to come over and grill out. I had friends over last night and I grilled all that stuff last night. I had a blast, watch the Final Four. But I also want to get everybody out of the house. Let's go do something. This afternoon, I'm going hiking up in DuPont National Forest with a friend. I don't have my kids this weekend, so I do have luxury of having free time that I might not have had, 5 years ago in my life, a little bit more free time. But what I try to be is authentic. And that kind of goes back to a conversation I had with, again, a very successful author several years ago, who has the background. They can sell this person's, the publishing world could sell this person's background. And it will sell books. My background sells no books. I'm Eric Bishop, a financial analyst who's done some really cool things in life, but I'm not a former Navy SEAL. I wasn't a Secret Service agent. I didn't. Right. No, this is going to blow everyone's mind. I didn't kill Osama bin Laden. I mean, geez. So that hurts me from a sales perspective. But the person I was talking to, just build. Your brand is yourself, Eric. Just be yourself. Yes. Put out there what you do. Some people will be annoyed by it. Some people will flock to it. Some people say, hey, I recognize that person. I like to do that kind of stuff. So that's kind of, when you have to create your brand, I just decided years ago, my brand, for all its flaws or positives, is me. So put out part of my journey out there and maybe people will connect with it. And, maybe they'll want to read my book.
But I see, I think that's way more valuable. Everybody's trying to figure out something, but I always say, well, then I have to remember what I told you online if you ever run across me and meet me, versus, one of the best compliments I had ever received was when I would do some public speaking. They would say, you're the same person on stage as off stage. I said, yeah, I really don't change. It's just, here I am, good, bad, or indifferent. And I think, but that's why you connect, or you feel, oh, he cooks too, or he's out hiking. I do that. One, that allows people to say, well, then what we started talking about is that, well, if he can do this, I can do this. Or, he doesn't seem like he's, above us all. No, he's out cooking and laughing and, hanging out with friends, and he's he's open and communicates with his people who, reach out to him versus, oh, I can't talk to you. And I think that's a way better place to build off of as a platform, because I'll guarantee you some of the people, if they're out there saying, my resume and my titles and my past, they just go, can't we just push me out and forget that title? Because that allows people to start creating things in their own mind. What you should be leads to potential more disappointments.
I completely agree. So, and I'll use an example, probably and I say it probably maybe people don't like me to say the word favorite, but I do have a favorite author. I got to see him a couple weeks ago, Brad Meltzer. Here,
I saw that. Yeah, I saw
promotion
that.
for Brad. Here's this one's this is my mom's birthday present. She's coming in a week and a half, so I got him to sign that. But the cool thing about Brad, and he's one of the people I met earlier on, just met online. I've now met him twice in person, but just at book signings. But the cool thing I liked about him was not just what he wrote. I love his books, but I love how he interacts and connects with people. And, when I reached out to him, I don't even remember what year it was now, it was 4 or 5 years ago, probably. I got a response back. And at the time I loved his books. I saw his history show on History Channel. And I'm like, and just kind of like what you were saying and what people say, it's like, well, cool. This guy, wow, Brad Meltzer is replying back to me. That just formed, an online friendship, an online connection that's maintained. And I've told him over the years, and he's in my acknowledgments, it's not saying I will achieve his level of success, but no matter what form of interaction I have with people through social media, through writing books, is I'm going to do it his way. I'm using his, not mimicking exactly what he does, but what he is, which is a good person who shows that kindness really does make a difference. Helping people really does, that one word of encouragement you give to someone, what I say, I believe in my heart, and what I say, I'm normally preaching to myself more so than I'm preaching to someone else, is I'm reinforcing to myself, hey, Eric, you need to stick with this and keep writing, and you need to do what's right, and you need to treat people the right way.
Exactly.
In the course of doing that, if someone can connect with those words, and that can give that person that passion or that zeal to finish their project, and I don't even have to even know about it. Just putting that out there, hopefully that will help make the difference in someone else's life, because I know what it did for my life. I know that feeling of accomplishment of finishing that first book, and then the second and the third and fourth and down the line. And I'll finish a 20th book one day. I have and that's not arrogance. That's what happens when you start something and see it to fruition and see the results of that hard work. That gives you a quiet confidence that, I can do this.
Right.
And that could go at some point. Maybe at some point I'll write a book and I'll be like, I don't know what to say. I don't know what to do. But I don't believe that. I believe that now that I've been able to do that, and been able to do it enough times to feel confident in my abilities, then it'll keep going. It'll keep going as long as I want to put that effort in to get the desired results.
Yeah. And what I really like about that, and for the audience, I hope you really just take a moment to really lock in to what Eric said, is that idea of a kind word, just being present for someone who reaches out. You'll never know, and you don't need to know, but that person may have needed that at that time. That's why I was saying, when I read the acknowledgments, I went through and I saw all the people you're thanked, but at that very end, talking about what I read earlier, it just connected to what I had just been through. And it was a reinforcement to say, that's a really super clear way to say it. Like, there it is right there, that you can be the hindrance to your own dreams. And for whatever reason, when we talk about social media, comparing yourself online to all these people, and we forget that they're posting the highlight reel of everything, and we're going. And so, part of what I was sharing with people was saying, unless you know all the details behind, don't just compare yourself to the highlight reel. But that goes a big way, to when, like, Jack Carr liked something or commented or thanked me, or one of the other authors, because I said, this is really a fantastic book, and they go, thank you very much. Like, that just feels even more connected to the author to say, wow, they took a moment to do that. They didn't have to, they did. but it's also the encouragement beyond it, because, and I really love reading the acknowledgments in people's books, because when you see all the people that help them at various stages for what they thank them for, and sometimes it's just thank you for that, or thank you for there's something what we might think is small actually in the moment is really impactful to that person and help them through a very tough time. So I think, to your point, is consciously being aware of it and not doing it for any other reason, just because it's the right thing to do, can have such an impact on someone.
Well, and I will say in regards to the acknowledgments, that was actually, if not the one of the first questions to the publisher, is like, hey, I'm going to get to put acknowledgments in. And of course you are. I don't want to limit. I'll take less money. I'll take less percentage on whatever the book, but and my acknowledgments were not supposed to, and I hope people never, I haven't gotten too many comments in my acknowledgments, so it was great to hear what you had to say about them. But they weren't meant to be a name drop or like, oh, look at the people I know, nothing like that. These are the people that helped me on this journey, because when I got to write those acknowledgments, which was earlier last year, honestly, so it's been about a year since I wrote them and finished them. In the back of my mind, I said, this might be the only book that gets published. They might cancel the rest of your contract. I could self-publish a book, and that's the joy and the downside of the world right now, is anybody could publish a book if you put some effort in. It can be the worst crap in the world, but you can get it out there and you can blast whoever you want, thank whoever you want. But I wanted so my next acknowledgements will probably be smaller, but I wanted to get that one out there that said, thank you. And thank you from the bottom of my heart, because that journey for 7 years to get that first book published was not Eric Bishop doing everything in the world right and everything that needed to be done to make it happen. Now, there's a lot of people that gave, the Brad Meltzers of the world, that gave me the encouragement and said, Brad, even simple things like, I've got a sign above my desk, basically. And it was a message he was doing a book tour down in Atlanta 3 years ago, or I guess maybe 4 now. What year was it? 2019. So 3 years ago. I had to look at the sign. But he was telling his story real quick. He was telling his story of how he got published. And he got to the point of the story of how basically it occurred. And what his pitch there was, don't let anyone tell you no. Now, he said that in an auditorium of several hundred people. I was one of them. I didn't see him before the event. I didn't talk to him or anything. He knew I was coming. I told him I was going to come, and he's like, great, it'd be great to finally meet you. When he got to that point, he stopped what he was kind of looking, looked over, his eyes zoomed in on me, and he said, don't let anyone tell you no. I nudged the stranger next to me, and I was like, dude, he's talking to me. Guy probably thought I was crazy.
Right.
Fast forward to an hour later, I'm in the receiving line for signing, because it probably 2 hours. He had so many people to sign stuff, and I waited to the end because I wanted to spend a few minutes with him. And as I got up there, first of all, he gave me a hug. Great to finally meet you. Great to see you, which just was like, wow, this is cool. It's my favorite author, like showing this genuine gratefulness to meet me. And I said, so don't let anyone tell you no. And he said, I was talking to you. And I said, I know you were. He goes, don't do it. You're because at the time I was done with The Body Man, or for a draft of it was done. And I had told him along the journey what I was doing. And again, he just reinforced that you can do this, but you can prevent it from happening if you quit. Yes. So if you keep getting the doors shut and slammed in your face, find one that opens. And that could be, for people listening, that could be self-publishing. Self-publishing is a double-edged sword. The downside is anyone can publish a book, so anyone can publish a crappy book. But on the positive side is if you've got a good book, and there's plenty of them that an agent won't sign you, or I went with a small publisher who you don't need an agent, won't give you a deal. You can publish it yourself. And I've read some self-published books that are just as good as, and sometimes better than something out there on the New York Times bestseller list. And sometimes that's the path you have to go. And that's the path I would have gone with The Body Man if I hadn't got the deal. I didn't want to go that path. That's a whole podcast in and of itself, why I didn't go that route. I might go that route again one day. I've got, those 3 earlier books I finished. I might try to pitch them to someone at some point again, clean them up. I might do something. and maybe I reread them a few years from now and realize that they're on my hard drive for a reason and they're not good enough to be published. But I've got some really good characters in there that I'd like to explore back when time allows. But again, back to what I was saying with Brad is, having that interaction with your favorite. That again, and even after the event ended, I was milling about. I had some books from the sign. He had said, "Hey, chat with me for a few minutes," and he had a family member come up and start talking to him. I think it was a cousin,
Mhm.
and she was basically saying, "Oh, Brad, why didn't you, meet us for dinner or hang out?" Da da da. And he said, "Oh, let me tell you how book tours work." And I'm off to the side, like 15 feet away, sitting there holding a book, looking like a dork, waiting for your favorite author. And he calls me over. So Brad, if you ever listen to this, I'll remind you of this story. He calls me over, "Eric, you're going to be doing book tours one day. Come over here and listen. This is how book tour works." And for the next 10 minutes, he told his cousin how it worked to go on a book tour, as he gave me a lesson of what to prepare for one day when I'm on a book tour. I can't express what that felt to me inside, to know that my favorite author is sharing something like that with me and pulling me into the fold, and also giving a confidence of saying, "You're going to be here one day."
Right. That's yeah.
And he meant it.
Feeling like you're an
So,
equal, like you're part of the club
exactly.
already. That's amazing. That's
Yeah.
amazing to one that he thought to do that, but also for you on the
Right.
receiving end. I mean, I mean, I'm sure everybody's had that moment, hopefully in one time in your life where you're looking around going, how did I end up here? But
Mhm.
everyone's treating you like you should be there. You're absolutely the only person doubting why you're there. And that goes back again to you're potentially sabotaging your own dreams when everyone else believes
Yes.
in you. I went through that where my wife used to, she used to say, you're the only one who doesn't see the person walking in the room that everybody else sees.
Mhm.
Like she
Wise
just,
woman.
yeah, she just punched me in the gut one day and she just said, like, you're the only one. Do you understand what people see when when you walk in? And I was like, ah, she goes, stop it.
Yeah.
And so you're right. It's easy to do that, but to have someone that you admire that says, "Hey, why don't you come to the table? Let me give you a tip because you're going to do that." It wasn't maybe someday. It's, yeah, I know you're going to do it.
Yeah.
That's so impactful. So impactful.
It
Wonderful.
is. And again, that's where it brings me back to using Brad as a model of, that's how I want to be with other people. And I'm at that point now, and I'm still at the bottom of the mountain pushing the boulder up. Trust me, I've gotten a little bit over that first couple humps, but that mountain's still really big. And I don't know how tall the mountain is. As far as I care, that mountain doesn't have a peak. I'm going to be pushing this boulder up probably for the rest of my life. I'm sure there's some people that get to that mode where it's downhill or flat, because they don't have to do it anymore. Maybe they don't care to do it anymore, but it's an upward struggle. But the cool thing is, even as far down the mountain as I am right now, I'm at the point where I'm starting to get people to send me stuff going, "Hey, what do you think about this?" Or, "Hey,
Right.
would you give me a blurb?" And I
Right.
try to nicely say, "I don't know if a blurb from Eric Bishop's going to sell a single book, but you know what? I got blurbs. I got blurbs from some big name authors before The Body Man came out, that blew me away, that I'm like, wow. Wow.
Yeah.
So if I can do that for someone now, and I can't do that for, 1,000 people at a time, but if I can do that, if a couple people are reaching out any given time and I can provide that for them as well, then I'm paying it forward. I'm giving homage to the Brad Meltzers, to the Jack Carrs, to the people out there that have showed me kindness along the journey and then continue to do so. And to your point, absolutely. They treat you like you're an equal, not some little, redheaded stepchild that's,
Sure.
back there. You're on par with them. And the truth of the matter is, there's always the exceptions. There might be the Hemingways, there might be, the Dickens, the huge name at the time. And we've got a few of them, I probably right now, that are out that you would say are just the big name. But for the most part, most of the authors out there are, you know, every day, and well, even the ones that have made it big. I don't know of any of them that were uber successful in life. And also that success let them start writing books. No, many of them actually started with other careers, and
Yes.
might have been very successful in those careers, but writing books was a passion they wanted to pursue as well. But they started from something. This isn't some, yeah, I don't know of any author that started with the silver spoon that just, they could do anything they wanted, so they choose to be a New York Times bestseller. And mommy and daddy bought enough books to make them a New York Times bestseller.
Right.
No, most authors I know started with other jobs, and I think that also that plays into not to go down a rabbit hole, but I think that plays into even myself and other people that have made it. And I'm not one of the people that has made it necessarily, but is this isn't their first career. This is something that if I had, I talked about writing in college, and that first book I had wrote with a friend, a year out of college. So I'm 20, 22, 23 years old. That book is crap, by the way. I went back and looked at it several years ago. I didn't read it all, but I read some of it. If I tried to submit that to an agent, to a publisher, I'd never talk to you again because they'd probably blacklist me. It's horrible.
Right.
I wasn't ready skill wise, even emotionally or mentally, to be successful in writing at 23 years old. It wasn't until I was 35, 36. And the cool thing about that then is you also have life experiences to draw off of. Unless you're sitting on your couch watching Netflix, with all your
Right.
free time, I guess then you'll have made up experiences to maybe put in a book. But if you're out there living life and you have a family and you have kids and all this, the amazing and also sometimes difficult things that comes with all that stuff,
Sure.
you have life experiences to draw off of. So what I was able to write in my 30s and even now in my mid 40s is so much more of a vast, speaking back to what we said earlier of, getting the details right and all that. I'm able to research better. I'm also able to make up stuff better in a way and make it more convincing because I have, 20 years of experience in the
Right.
professional world of interacting with people, reading articles, watching stuff. My brain, at some point it might start going way downhill, but right now it's still in that good phase of it can actually piece together the Rubik's Cube stuff and make
Right.
things well. So,
Well, listen, I could sit here and chat with you all day about this.
we'll bore people.
No, you're not boring anyone. But what we do at the end of every episode is I ask 5 questions, just random
Awesome.
ones, called the one, first thing that pops into your head. But I always like to understand a little more, and can't wait to ask you these. So, all right. So the first one is what book or something that you're watching or reading right now that's inspiring you that you would recommend to the audience?
Ooh, what book or something? I have fallen back into watching a little bit more television than I probably should.
Okay. So what are you
I'm,
watching?
I'm watching. I'm way behind the curve here, Glenn. So I stayed up way. Don't have the kids this weekend, so my normal routine for the weekends of not having the kids is stay up like till really like 4 a.m. and get up at like 10 and do my day and write and do whatever. I'm watching Game of Thrones, of all things.
Ah, there you go.
And I'm on the fence about it though. I think it's really cool, but I'm also middle aged, and so I realized that I might say I stay up till 4 o'clock in the morning, but I might sleep a little bit here and there during some of them. So I keep missing chunks of episodes where I kind of open my eyes. I'm like,
What
the
just happened?
hell's going on here? What is this? So, but it's actually it's a very interesting show, and I actually, so if I can tell a 30-second story, I met
Absolutely.
George R. R. Martin. So I was doing one of the things that's really important for writers is part of the community is to get involved. And starting in 2017, I guess 17, I went to my first Thriller Fest in New York City, and I got teamed up with the security team, which I'm so imposing with my 5'8", massive brawn. They put me on security, so I of course, call myself the lead stopper. I'm the one that just stand in front of the bullet. Boom.
Right.
Okay, he served his purpose. Good job, Bishop. So I'm doing security several years ago for George R. R. Martin, and security in the very low tech sense of just stand here, make sure. Well, they started telling stories of why George has a security and all that. So after the fact, I'm telling some friends. I get back from there, and I'm like, "Yeah, I met George R. R. Martin." Da da da. Like, dude, have you seen Game of Thrones? I was like, no, I've not watched that. Have you read the books? No. And they're like, what? Did you get him to sign a book? And I'm like, no. And what's wrong with you? It's George R. R. Martin. And I was like, what's the big deal? And so I totally was out of the curve of, oh, this is a big deal.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it was pretty cool experience meeting him, and some of the stories of some of the things we had to keep people from going behind him for reasons and stuff. And it'll make it in a book one day, probably, some of those life experiences.
All right. So let's see. One
I'll make
place.
the other answers quicker, by the way. Sorry.
That's all right. Listen, we got time. We ain't going anywhere. One place that you would like to travel that you haven't been to yet.
That's a tough one. First thing that came to mind was Australia. I would love to go to Australia and New
You're the
Zealand.
third person in the last 5 episodes that have said New Zealand or Australia. Something about it. Everybody wants to go.
And I have a really big bucket list, and some of them people think I'm crazy to have. Like, I want to sit, like, not enter the White House. I've been in there 3 times. I want to sit behind the Resolute desk. Actually, if I can get an invite to stay in the Lincoln bedroom, whoever's listening, I want to sneak down the middle of the night and go right on the Resolute desk, pop my laptop down and write a chapter. And that'll be my favorite chapter of my life. Don't know if that's going to happen, but go big or go home, have big things.
I like
but
that.
Yeah, travel, I have a lot. And one of them is Australia, New Zealand for sure. But if I could travel 1 week of the month, if I could afford to, just if I made that George R.R. Martin money,
crank up the jet and go.
I would be on my G650 once a month going, hey, I hear Tahiti's nice this month. And the next month be like, yeah, I haven't walked the Great Wall in a while.
Let's go there. Let's go have lunch there.
Lunch in Paris, or, croissants in Paris sound really good.
Exactly. Oh, let's go lunch in Paris.
My daughter wants to go for her 16th, by the way. She's like, Daddy, will you take me to Paris for my 16th birthday? And I'm like, darn it. Yeah, sure.
Yes,
let's see what the world's like in 6 years.
Okay. So since you are such a great griller and cook, I see all the things that your feed makes me hungry at times. What's your one go-to meal that you're the most proud of, that you're like, that's what I make, and everybody just goes, damn, that's great?
Yeah, my go-to is probably my filet. I started that, and actually I used to do it on the gas grill. It did it pretty good. It's gotten exponentially better. It was good to start with. It's gotten a lot better since I got the Blackstone. So my sides on that vary. If I want to go really a little bit unhealthier, I'll do, I did asparagus last night.
Yes, they looked good.
Just drizzled with balsamic glaze. But when I want to spend a little extra money and really impress the friends, or my son mainly, because he's the one that loves it, is I get prosciutto. So you wrap the asparagus in prosciutto.
Yep.
I've never done drugs in my life, Glenn, but I assume that's what crack is like, because
they're pretty damn good when you do it that way. Yes. When you wrap it up, pretty damn good. I've done them myself, and that's where I can get the boys to eat it, because they go, oh, that's really damn good.
So I will say a little quick on that.
Yeah.
A couple years ago, I had the kids out for dinner. What were we out for? It wasn't my birthday. It might have been the holidays a couple of years ago. It was just us. It was after kind of everything in life had kind of settled down, and went out to a restaurant. And I got a filet. We were at a Firebirds, a restaurant. So it's a chain, but it's a little bit nicer than some of the others. I like the food better. I don't go very often, a couple times a year. And I got a filet, and I got the kids, like, from the kids menu, steak, and they're looking at mine. They're like, "What is that?" And I'm like, "Oh, that's a filet." They hadn't had a filet. I guess they hadn't had a filet yet. Probably not. I didn't get it. So I cut off a little piece. I didn't get much of my filet. And so that then started, I started the downward, trajectory with the kids with that, with like, Daddy, we want filet. And I'm like, ooh, Dad, I'm like I'm a hamburger person financially that can sometimes throw a filet at you. This isn't filet that sometimes gets something better. It's like, crap, I ruined them.
Oh no, that's my oldest son went from dad. One time we were having fillets, and he just said, "This is different." And I said, "Yep." Now he goes, "I'd like that." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm sure you would." All right, so we got 2 more. Actually, yeah, 2 more. What if there was one thing? Let's go back to 16-year-old Eric, high school Eric, to now. What's the one thing that you would say is similar, that the 16-year-old go, yep, that's still there? Or the one thing also that you'd say, wow, that 16-year-old would never believe this?
That's a great question. Probably the downside of that question is I probably am 16 in my head. So mentally, I'm probably still 16, Glenn. So that hasn't changed. Probably there's a few people in my life that would probably confirm that. I'd say, you never grew up. That's part of the problem. Yeah, so I can go back to that mindset pretty easy, that a lot of people, as they get older, they get real boring, in my opinion. They don't want to go do, they just, I don't know, they want to sit home and watch TV and cook on their Blackstone, and they kind of want to get fat and happy. And I still have that 16-year-old zeal of going, hey, cool. Friday night, and I'm totally by myself. Most time Friday nights, every other Friday night, I don't have my kids. Every other weekend, I don't have my kids. And my Friday night routine is typically grab pizza, go work out, watch a movie late night, but kind of just don't hang out with friends. Normally they have kids, and
Right.
I'm one of the few single ones in my social circle. Well, this Friday night, I was like, a Guns N' Roses tribute band's coming around.
I saw
I'm
that.
going down to see Night Train. So I didn't know if it was going to be good. I don't know. I had an absolute blast. I didn't know a single person there. Didn't really know anyone by the end of the night either. I talked to a few people. But that's that side of
Right.
me that's willing to just go do something off the cuff, go drop my $20, go stand in the front row and scream till my voice is hoarse, sweet child of mine. And so the reverse side of that, wait, what was the reverse side?
The reverse side would
now?
say, what would the 16-year-old looking at you now saying, I never thought that was going to happen?
Ooh, yeah, that's a tough one. What would he say? Probably that I would be back in the South. And that's just kind of life circumstances change you. I kind of lived here years ago during college, and then after college, I wanted to get out and explore. I've always been an explorer. Wanderlust is very strong within me. But life circumstances kind of brought me back here. And I think for a period of time that kind of negatively affected me, put it that way. I think I had an attitude about, I don't want to be here. I want to be out exploring. And that's when, as much as my brain might be 16, I am actually 45. And, I just realized, what, life is what you make it. If you don't want to be in a particular place for a period of time, you can either look at it as the glass is half empty or it's half full.
Right.
And that's kind of what the experience is the last 3 years of my life, which had nothing to do with COVID, just other parts of life, led me to believe and really reinforced to me that, what, Glenn, the glass really is half full. And if you want to look at it as half empty, you're going to miss out on life, and you're going to put yourself in a negative position in life that, yeah, circumstances can throw you down and can throw you curveballs and they're out of your control, but your attitude is something you absolutely have control over. So if you want to keep a bad attitude, you're probably going to have a bad life. And you've brought it onto yourself to some degree because of what you've done with what's been given to you.
I like that. All right, last one. We talked about a lot of different things. There's definitely been a few central themes, but if there was one thing that you would want the audience to get from our conversation today, one thing they take away from this, what would that one thing be?
Never quit.
Love it.
That's as complicated as it. Never quit. I didn't say it this way earlier, but you have to be grounded in reality, of course. If I'm 45. If I decide today, Glenn, I think I want to play basketball, I'm going to be the next LeBron James. I'm going to be a very disappointed person because I will never, no matter how hard I work, I will never achieve that dream. However, if I say to you, Glenn, I think I'm going to be a New York Times bestseller. Okay, that's possible. It might not happen, but that's something within my wheelhouse that I can work towards because it's something that's achievable.
Right.
So, and that's what I try to even tell my kids and tell other people. Look, when it comes to, and I use writing because obviously that's what I do that's my passion. Finish that first draft. Everything else that happens after that is a whole nother conversation.
Right.
But if you don't finish that first draft, nothing happens. You stopped it right then and there. And that carries over to any other part of life. You have to make that first attempt or that first completion of something before you then can move on to the next thing. So, but you do have to be grounded in reality. I guess I could still have time to be president if I want to be president, which sounds like the crappiest job in the world. Although Air Force One could get me to Australia a little easier and stuff on a taxpayer's dollar. But you have to be grounded in reality, but at the same time, have dreams. It's kind of like when I talk about the Oval Office. I've got some things on there that people go like, you're crazy. That can't happen. Well, everything on my bucket list could happen. Is it going to happen? Probably not. But I tell you how it doesn't happen. If I don't pursue it, if I don't make some effort into it or try to get the connections to the Secret Service or whatever, it could happen, but I can prevent it from happening. And that's life right there.
I agree. Well, thank you so much, Eric. This has been a phenomenal way to spend some time. I hope audience, I hope you all. So besides going and buying The Body Man, which everyone should, when is Breach of Trust coming out? Do you have a pub date?
That's a good question. I don't have an answer to that.
Okay, that's fine.
I'm assuming it'll come out late in fall, kind of around the same time The Body Man did last year.
Okay.
But since I haven't given a draft to the publisher yet, I guess we
got to get that one then. Okay.
They might be waiting for me, and I'm not. It's not to say I'm not in a rush to do that. I don't have a firm deadline, and definitely as time goes on and I finish the books, you want to make them, and they have to be better and better. I will say real quick, Breach of Trust, one person has read it. I finished it on March 22nd. I had someone finish it by March 24th. It's everybody kind of, whether it's a spouse, a friend, a family member, someone that's not related to them. I think everybody has that one person that probably gets the first early drafts, and hopefully you trust their opinion. And so I have the one person in my life who's can be critical, can be encouraging, all that stuff wrapped in. And I got the thumbs up. That was the good thing of The Body Man was really good. This is better.
There you go.
Here's some things you need to work on.
Yes.
But that kind of gave me that, okay, this wasn't Eric creating a story in his head that's like, well, you screwed this one up, dude.
No, I can't wait. I can't wait. So again, so also how can the audience, and we'll connect everything in the show notes, but how can they connect with you? What's the best way for them to learn more about The Body Man, but also connect with you if they want to reach out to you?
Yeah, so my website, ericpbishop.com. My middle name is Paul, so there was already an Eric Bishop out there. So ericpbishop.com has all the links that can get you to the book. Probably Twitter is the best thing if you want to see what's going on in my life and what I'm doing. And it's at EPB author, my initials. And I'm on Facebook, Instagram. I even have a TikTok account, which totally embarrasses my children.
Yes, I was already told I'm not allowed to have one, even though my business is marketing. They're going, please don't.
I don't know if it sells a single book, but I take some of the videos I put on Twitter, and it takes about 30 seconds to say upload to TikTok, and that's about the extent of my TikTok experience.
Very well. All right. Well, audience, this has been a phenomenal conversation. As I said, please go out and get the book. Please reach out to Eric if you want. He's a great follow on social media. That's how we connected. You've been very generous with your time. You know the drill, folks. I want to thank PCG Digital for being a sponsor. If you found value today, please leave us a rating, share it out, because I'm sure there's people in your network that could benefit from the conversation we had today. And don't forget to subscribe. As always, I appreciate your attention. And whenever, as I say at the end of every show, whenever you're feeling, you're in charge, now what do I do? We're here weekly with guests like Eric, giving you tips and strategies to help you move forward to become the person, the leader, whatever you want to accomplish. We're here to help you every single week. So thank you so much. Appreciate your attention. Look forward to seeing you next episode. Again, Eric, I am just so honored. Thank you so much for spending some time today.
Thank you, Glenn. Don't forget, audience, never quit.